right, my watch says 6:30 and we have a lot to get through tonight, so I'm going to get us started. Good evening, everybody. And I'm going to start it off with a prayer. So the Lord be with you. Let us pray. O God, by your grace, you have called us in this diocese to a goodly fellowship of faith. Bless our clergy and all our people. Grant that your word may be truly preached and truly heard, your sacraments faithfully administered and faithfully received. By your Spirit, fashion our lives according to the example of your Son, and grant that we may show the power of your love to all among whom we live. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. So tonight we are going to be going through the nominations for those who have been nominated to stand for various offices, and then going on to the resolutions. So we're going to start with nominations, and I invite Deacon Mike Halley, who is the chair of the nominations committee, to guide us through that process.
Thank you, Bishop, very much, and good evening to everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. For standing committee, I will introduce those who are going to be seeking candidacy in the clerical order and also then in the lay order. And you'll have 2 minutes to talk about the reasons that you are seeking to election to the standing committee. So I'll start then with the clerical order. And as it happens, I'm also running for re-election to the standing committee. And the Reverend Rod Hurst is not here this evening, but I invite you to go and take a look at his responses on the website and read about those things that he shared to offer the standing committee election. And then actually I'm going to start with the Reverend Hunter Ruffin to allow for 2 minutes to discuss why Hunter, you're looking to be part of the standing committee. So Hunter.
Good evening. Thank you, Deacon Halley. Ultimately, this is about engagement and discipleship for me. And this is one of the ways that I'm able to do so, in particular as a clergy person, and to, as Christ encourages us to walk in love. And being part of the standing committee is an opportunity to do so in conversation with our bishop, in conversation with our diocese, and to continue that walk of discipleship that is ultimately a journey for all of us to and with God in our lives. My hope is to be a voice of love, a voice of one who is also on his own spiritual journey, in the midst of discerning the ways forward for ourselves as the Diocese of Arizona. And I look forward to hopefully being able to do so alongside our bishop and other colleagues on the standing committee. I've said a lot more about what I think it means to be an Episcopalian and our opportunities and challenges in my responses. And I think that ultimately we have a huge opportunity in front of us to preach the gospel at all times in both word and deed, as our baptismal covenant encourages us to do so. And I think the standing committee has a large role to play in helping shape the way that we do that in this corner of God's creation.
Thank you very much, Reverend Hunter. I think that was wonderful. And I'm going to just say that the reason I'm seeking re-election, I was actually an appointee onto the standing committee from the appointment of Archdeacon Amy. So I have been enjoying and have been very blessed and feel very humbled to be on the standing committee for a little over a year now. And I really want to bring to the standing committee a lot of the insight and the journey that I've had so far in the Episcopal Church, and bring that to the state of Arizona Episcopal Church. And I also have been looking to be able to bring also a voice of love and compassion, as the church has a lot on its plate, a lot of opportunities for the future. There's a lot of dynamic energy that takes place on the standing committee, that the interaction that we have with our parish families from the diocese has been very enlightening to me. I've been a cradle Episcopalian to be able to be in parish ministry for years. And so this has been a great insight into the diocesan level business, which is, oh my goodness, so different and so interesting. And it's been, as I say, a great honor, and very humbled to be a part of such a group of leaders, to be able to take the church into the following years, and to be able to work with our bishop has been a huge, also humbling, rewarding experience, and have enjoyed that interaction and
Is that
her
it? I think
leadership.
we get walk-off music apparently if you exceed your time, which
Okay,
I was
well,
unaware that that was coming, but I'm very entertained by it.
I got it.
Thank you, Laurel,
So
for
thank you. And I'd like to now find out if there are any nominations from the floor, you all and the clergy, that would be seeking to be on the standing committee.
and if so, please raise your hand so we can see
If
you.
so, please raise your hand or send a little message through on the memo or chat, I mean. No? Okay, with that, we'll continue now on to the lay order. We are electing 2 for a 3-year term on the lay order. And our current nominees are Dr. Stanley James, Kyle Kim Hayes, and Daniel Packard. Each of you will have 2 minutes to talk and let us know what your why you'd like to seek election on the standing committee. So with that, I'll start with Dr. Stanley James.
Good evening. Glad to be with all of you. I think as been previously mentioned, this will be my second term on the standing committee. I hope that you had a chance to take a look at some of the things that I've done so that I don't need to repeat my experiences both here and here in Arizona and also in Wisconsin. I believe that I bring a very different perspective to the business of the Episcopal Church. I also think that our current presiding bishop has tasked us with thinking about developing the beloved community. And I feel that it has been part of my responsibility as a member of the standing committee to bring my perspective on the beloved community and to help us to think it through and to do some things that are helpful in doing that kind of work. It's important work. It should not stop because the presiding bishop is stepping down and we have a new bishop. It places us, I think, within a context not only of the state, but of the United States and globally. It helps us to think about how we are a part of all of those different parts of the world and what our role is in that. And I would like to help continue with that thought process as well. I also think that as a layperson, I do bring a different perspective. We have had a lot of things that have come before us in the standing committee, and I feel that I have been able to provide different ways of thinking about things, and I'd like to continue to do so. I, there it is. I was waiting for the music. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. Thank you so much. And now Kyle Kim Hayes.
Hi, good evening to everyone, and thank you for this chance to speak. I have been attending St. Philip's in the Hills in Tucson for the past year since I moved here from New Jersey with my husband and twin 7-year-old children. At St. Philip's, I've been volunteering as an usher, as a senior youth volunteer, as a lector, and most recently Angel Tree coordinator, which, to shamelessly plug it for a moment here, provides Christmas gifts to children whose parents are incarcerated. Really worthwhile. Please look into it and reach out to me if you have any questions. I am here first. I want to testify that I'm a Christian, first of all, because a Christian ministry reached out to me and got me off the streets where I was a homeless youth. And I am a proud Episcopalian because this is the church home. This is the denomination I found that allows me to be both Christian and gay, which was surprisingly hard at the time and is still a challenge for many people out there today. When I think about why I would like to be considered for the standing committee, I think it comes down to the fact that I'm unexpected. As I hinted before, I've survived and can testify to the grace of God. I am here because our God is a God of second chances and a God that is endlessly faithful. And so that's the first reason, that because I feel that my testimony is strong on that front. I also have a strong track record of finding creative solutions to problems. And if you read the write-up to the responses that I submitted, you'll see that I've done that for some companies that most people know. And lastly, I'm here because I feel like I owe it to the people whose shoulders I stand on.
Thank you very much, Kyle. I appreciate that. Daniel Packard.
Thank you. My name is Daniel Packard. For those of you who may not know me, I'm an attorney and CPA. I currently work as a lawyer for a bank, and I am running for a standing committee. I grew up in the Midwest in Grand Rapids, Michigan, a small, medium town in West Michigan, not far from the lake. Got tired of shoveling snow and never seeing the sun, so I decided to come to Arizona, where I went to the U of A, got a bachelor's degree in business, and then later graduate school, did a joint JD MBA. Started my career in a big CPA firm, then moved to a big law firm, and done a number of things outside of that to grow my skills outside of strictly practice of law or accounting. Owned a retail business for 10 years, very good at building trusted client relationships, giving my clients a great experience, learned how to manage people, how to achieve our goals, and how to get a business to thrive in a constantly changing competitive environment. For the past 10 years or so, I've been a lawyer doing estate planning, charitable giving, serving nonprofit organizations with whatever they need, working for the bank, managing endowment and investment accounts for big nonprofit and institutional clients around the country. I'm very involved with Art Prize, where I founded a statewide art competition that's a very important part of the largest international art competition in the world. So moving to, in the interest of time, to church, I was raised a Methodist, became an Episcopalian in the early 2000s after I heard about Gene Robinson, and also being a gay person and wanting to live my life authentically. I checked out the Episcopal Church and loved it, joined All Saints Phoenix, quickly became involved, sang in the choir, taught Sunday school, youth leader, Right 13 leader, been an acolyte, reader, chalice bearer, co-founded Community of Hope at All Saints, was a lay youth visitor. I'm running for standing committee because I still have a lot to give, and I hope that you will support me as I have tried to give back to the church all these years, and I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Daniel. So thanks to the three of you so much. And I also now want to call for any other nominations from the floor. If anyone wants to run for standing committee in the lay order, please raise your hand or send up a little chat. Okay, seeing none, we will move along now to the disciplinary board. The disciplinary board and the clerical order, we need to elect 3 for 3-year terms. And at this point, we don't have enough sufficient nominees to fill the roles. And so currently we have the Reverend Aaron Cox One and the Reverend Scott McComas. And so we will listen to those 2 nominees and find out what their reason is for being on the disciplinary committee, and then we will go to the floor. So let's start with the Reverend Aaron Cox One.
Okay, I am Erin Cox-One, and I am the chaplain at the school at All Saints on Central and a priest at the church. And I am running because I feel like I'm called to a place that has a team that serves where faith and love are tested. And I feel like my grandmother's skills of desire for justice, a need for reconciliation, and always, always, always done in love would serve me well. And that's it. So cue the music.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Now we'll hear from the Reverend Scott McComas. Reverend McComas, are you on?
I do not see him on the call.
I do
Okay.
not see him either. So I was just looking. So why don't
So
we move forward,
I'll
and then
invite
if he
you.
gets on later, we'll go back.
Perfect. And I invite you then to go to the website and take a look again at his responses of question and answer and what he offered in nomination. And then I'd also like to now call for nominations from the floor. We need at least one more candidate to be able to fill a role within the disciplinary committee. Do we have anyone on the floor that is so moved to be a nominee for the disciplinary committee? If so, raise your hand, send up a little smoke signal, chat, anything.
Are you referring to just
To clerical.
Clerical
thank
order
you.
for now.
clerical?
Clerical order for now.
By way of explanation, if we do not fill all of these positions at convention on Saturday, then I appoint people. So there will still be a disciplinary board. But Sean Rutledge has raised his hand.
Oh, good. Thank you,
Sean, or maybe on accident, but
It was
Sean,
on
do you
purpose.
accept the nomination
Yes.
for disciplinary committee? Great. And Sean, can you go ahead and just talk a little bit about your reason and to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Sean Rutledge. I am the vicar at St. Peter's in Casa Grande. I have approximately 20 years in experience in HR before I entered into seminary, and was responsible for all of staffing at some very large companies. And part of that was disciplinary and listening to what had occurred and then finding a good solution for it. So I believe that I would have the proper experience to sit on the disciplinary committee.
Thank you, Sean. And So do you accept the nomination? Thank you.
Yes.
So someone,
All right.
Sean, you will need to set someone up to nominate you on Saturday from the floor. So I see in the chat a question about what does the disciplinary board do, which is an excellent question. And the correct answer to that question is that in a perfect world, the disciplinary board does nothing. So there is one person on the disciplinary board who is the president of the disciplinary board who is elected at each year after convention. We elect a president for the disciplinary board. That person does actually do some work in our diocese, where that person, as disciplinary matters come up, is part of what is called the reference panel, which is myself, the intake officer, and the president of the disciplinary board. So that person actually does have like stuff to do somewhat. The rest of the disciplinary board is only called upon to serve if there is a disciplinary case that moves forward into a hearing panel or a conference panel, which does happen sometimes, but has not yet happened in my time as your bishop. And it is obviously my hope that that will not happen in my time as your bishop, but it could happen. And if it does happen, we need people on the disciplinary board who are able and willing to serve in that capacity. So the people on the disciplinary board need to have the capacity to learn about and educate themselves about Title IV, be trained in that, and be compassionate and yet rule-following people.
Thank you, Bishop. So I now am calling for candidacy for the disciplinary board in the lay order. And we need to elect 3 for a 3-year term. And as the bishop said before, if no one comes forward, then the bishop will appoint an individual to that disciplinary board. But do we have any nominations from the floor for the lay order of the disciplinary board?
So I see Beth Hatcher had her hand up first. So Beth, why don't you do your 2 minutes with us, and then we'll work through. Mike, are you able to see people from where you are in your phone? Yeah, so
No.
I'll help facilitate this.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mike is doing this tonight from Istanbul, not Constantinople. So
That's right.
Last Thursday, when the bishop had said that there were no nominees for the lay position, I did some research. And the thing that appealed to me about this board is that they seek to for healing and reconciliation. It's not just about punishment per se. And that really appealed to me because I've been in my church has had some major upheavals between the clergy and the parishioners for the last 30 years. We've had 3 major upheavals. And the piece that I have found lacking was the reconciliation piece for all parties involved and the follow through. And so that has produced hurt in my church. So that really appealed to me, that is a focus of what this group does. And then I was on my school board locally, and I did have to hear claims that could have been presented in executive session, and they decided to bring them forth in public. One was particularly uncomfortable for me because it was my former principal. So through that process, I found that in sifting through facts and so forth, I was able to sort through the emotion part of it and look at the facts and weigh them and make a decision. So this is why I'm throwing in my name for nomination. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
thank you, Beth. And Clyde Coons, I saw your hand up next.
Thank you very much. For those who don't know, Title IV, this wasn't really said, is the portion of canon that deals with the processes when a complaint comes forward regarding a member of the clergy. For the first step in that process is that an intake is done to determine whether or not the claim falls within the auspices of Title IV. And for the past 4 years, I have been an intake officer, one of 2, in the diocese, hearing those claims. I am about to step down, I believe, as an intake officer, and this is kind of another step in the Title IV process. I was also a delegate to the church convention in Louisville this year, and as part of that, I was a member of the committee that was reviewing canon related to Title IV. So I'm very familiar with Title IV processes and the canon that handles all of that. I currently serve as the volunteer canon for stewardship in the diocese, and I think this would be a way of keeping myself engaged in the Title IV process, although I do hope that the committee never has to meet, as the bishop indicated, but I would like to be involved in that process if possible.
Thank you, Clyde.
You accept them.
And Steve Keplinger, I see your hand up, and I assume you are nominating a layperson, or?
I am nominating a
Sweet.
layperson. And that layperson's name is Kim Braun. Kim has a very strong background in listening, compassion, and fairness. And Kim is on board with us this evening, so she can speak for herself if you would like at this point.
I would. Kim.
Yes, please.
Hi, yes. I also was paying attention during the first pre-convention workshop and heard Bishop Brettall say that lay people were needed for this purpose. And I said, oh, what is that? And I asked Father Steve and then gave it some thought and decided that was something that I could do. I like the idea of filling a hole within our church or within our diocese where there's a strong need, but it is a bit of a challenge, and so not necessarily everybody's is set for it, to take on that kind of challenge. I took a moment to fill out the questions given to each of the candidates, and so I just thought I'd read my answer to the second question, which was, what gifts and talents would I bring to the position for which I'm seeking nomination? And I said that during his lifetime, my father gave me a tremendous gift. He was a high school counselor until retirement and then a clinical psychologist. My many conversations with him gave me a good analytical sense, but also a good dose of compassion. My 3 children have also given me a tremendous gift, that of patience. And also, through my employment history, I gained 15 years of experience in managing, fundraising, marketing, and coordinating special events for nonprofit organizations. And in addition, I worked on the other side of fundraising, evaluating grant applications for funding. And I'm not going to use my whole 2 minutes, so.
It is perfectly acceptable to use less time than allotted. Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Clyde and Beth. Are there others who would seek nomination for lay members for the disciplinary board? But I am very encouraged that there are 3 spots and there are now 3 people. So good job, Diocese of Arizona. Well done.
Thank you.
Mike, back to you.
No, I think that's it. Back
right?
to you, Bishop.
Back to me. No, from me to Ben.
Oh, okay.
That concludes
Thank
the
you.
nominations portion of the evening, and now we will move to the resolutions portion of the evening. So I invite Ben Guerin, the chair of resolutions, to take over facilitating this.
So good evening, everyone, and thank you. Please, I ask for your patience to begin this process. We have a very large docket to go through, some of which have a lot of substance, and some of which are relatively straightforward clerical changes we're attempting to make to the Constitution and to the canons of the diocese. Serena, I believe you have the actual resolutions ready to be put up on the screen. Thank you so very much. So what I'm going to be doing with all of these is I will read the title. I will give a very brief introduction into what is the plan for this to do, like what will happen if we pass this resolution. And then one of the sponsors of the resolution will have an opportunity to speak to it with more passion or clarity than I am going to do. So the first resolution that we'll be looking at is Resolution 2024.27. The title is Remembrance, Recognition, Reconciliation, Relationship, and Reparations. Native ministry in the Diocese of Arizona. In brief, what this resolution will do is remind ourselves of some previous resolutions that we have taken up as a diocese in regard to building more meaningful relationships with our Indigenous neighbors and members throughout every level of society in the church. And in the midst of that, what is being added here to remembrance, recognition, reconciliation, and relationship, which we already had, is the word reparations. Very critically, there is no financial expectation to this at all. The goal of reparations as presented here is about focusing our time of remembrance, recognition, reconciliation, and relationship with Indigenous people to orient to sort of saying, how can we create ongoing relationships that are now potentially reparative in nature? If Monica Whitaker, Patrice Cole, or Debbie Royals would like to speak more succinctly to this resolution, they have the moment now to do so.
I'd be happy to speak to the resolution. This is Reverend Monica Whitaker. I'm the rector of St. Matthew's in Chandler, and I've served on the Native American Council for 7 years. I've seen a lot of work done over that time, especially in developing relationships locally through our parishes. And the next step out of that was working towards reconciliation. And in doing that, we did a lot of research into the boarding school, the boarding schools in different areas of the diocese. And this past year, we've gone deeper toward reconciliation by inviting people who we've developed relationships with to share their experiences of the boarding school era. And so it just seems like it's a natural next step in becoming beloved community. If you remember that image of the labyrinth of going in and out of telling the truth and continuing to repair broken bridges. And so this is just an opportunity to work in a deeper level in developing the relationships and learning together, discerning what reparations may mean to the people who we've grown to know and love in the Native American community. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Are there questions about this resolution for Monica or the other sponsors? All right. Ben.
So our next resolution is also from our Native Ministries Council, and 2024.28, supportive federal legislation for Truth and Healing Commission. In brief, what this does is take a resolution that was passed by the General Convention, and then affirm it for, sorry, not by our General Convention, sorry, this resolution comes out of a Truth and Healing Commission that was part of the healing pilgrimage process that we have been taking part of. And in brief, what it asks is that we as a diocese, when we are looking towards our advocacy work on a federal level, but also similarly on a state level, are looking to support those programs that the federal and state governments are creating to engage the reality of the boarding schools. And it basically goes through that and gives our standing committee and our bishop and the Native Ministries Council sort of the backing of the diocesan convention in our engagement politically on a federal and state level regarding truth and healing commissions around the boarding school process. Monica, if you would like to speak more to this resolution.
Sure. So yes, the Truth and Healing Commission policies in the United States Act. Those have been presented to the Senate and the House. They are sitting there right now. I think different committees have been looking at it, either addressed it or passed on it. It seems like it's a slow process. I can put some links in the chat if you'd like to learn more about it. You could just actually Google the acts, the proposed acts, but there's also, you could let your opinions be known through Episcopal Public Policy Network through the Office of Government Relations. But I'll put some links in the chat so you can do some more research on your own.
Thanks, Monica.
Sure.
Ben, back to you.
Okay. We're now beginning to look at the resolutions that are dealing with the Constitution and canons of the diocese. The first set of resolutions here have to deal with the Constitution. And what's important when we look at this is that these are resolutions that we will have to pass both at this convention as well as next year. And so most of these resolutions, as we're going through them, are often clerical in nature, and there are a few that we will be getting to that have substance to them of actual change to how we do things. So Resolution 2024.1, amend Constitution to no longer reference diocesan council. Quite some time ago, we, as a diocese, chose to no longer have both a diocesan council and a standing committee. And the standing committee took up all of the responsibilities of the former diocesan council. Excuse me. In the midst of this, we weren't able to update all of our constitution at that time, and the standing committee has just been maintaining all of the the diocesan council's former duties. This basically just updates the Constitution to reflect what has actually been happening for quite some time. And so that goes through and corrects this Constitution, this section of the Constitution, just erase diocesan council and replace it with standing committee. Erica, do you wish to speak to this at any specificity?
No, I think you've summarized that very well. We just want to clean it up.
And I'll jump in here. So I convened this committee to look at the Constitution and canons because for 5 years it's bugged me that there were things that were left over from whenever the last major revision was. And so, but obviously whenever you look under the hood, you start discovering other things and you start asking questions about, well, how could we be church better? And so as Ben and Erica guide you through these resolutions, they reflect the wisdom of the committee once we started looking at the Constitution and canons about recommending some changes that are just sort of like purely cosmetic, or things that are like, okay, you could have a bishop who was not a man, and some things which are actually substantive and would potentially change how our diocese functions.
So any questions to 2024.1? 2024.2 simply is changing the bishop, the pronouns referencing the bishop to gender neutral pronouns. 2024.3 is basically is ability to elect 1 or 2 suffragan bishops without right of succession. And that would be the change to the Constitution.
Ben, before we scroll, Monica says that she has a question about 1.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Now she says number 5 and 13.
Okay.
We're not quite there yet, though.
Not
So
quite there
let's get there.
2024.4 changes the quorum of convention from 1/4 to 1/3. Basically making it so that there has to be a more substantive number of people at convention for us to reach quorum. So we're now moving on to the canon resolutions. So these are resolutions that if we vote on, and they pass by a majority vote in both the clerical and lay order, that they will be put in place and the canons will have changed. Resolution 2024 O as an omnibus 1 is an omnibus canon language update resolution. We'll look at all of these resolutions individually relatively quickly. All of these resolutions are just above clerical level changes in the canons. In most cases, it has to do with issues of gender inclusive language, are similar, just basic concepts of changing something slightly. This is an omnibus resolution that we can present at the floor. If we pass this, then we will have passed all of these more clerical error changes that we're looking to have in the canons. So we'll look at each of these individually as we move forward, but the goal of this resolution is just simply to make our time at in convention shorter.
Ben, before you move on,
Yeah.
there's a question in the chat from John Andrews. Couldn't find oh, sorry. Should specific references to laws in this Congress be retained in point 2.8 as there is limited time remaining, parentheses, about 6 weeks in the current Congress?
So the answer to that question, John, is that the wording of the resolution has and similar worded laws moving forward, specifically so that we can both reference the exact law in question at this time, but also in future Congresses and the like, sit there and say, we've acted on this. So as long as it is as a similarly worded law, we have the preemptive statement saying that we're looking to support this type of law if this resolution passes.
Thank you, Ben. Yes, I saw that in the opening paragraph. I was looking down near the bottom where it said that added be it resolved that near the very bottom of point 2.8.
So generally we have to have the reference to this specific Congress in there, and that has been a request of the commission that we received this resolution from and have been asked to support it. So we are joining in several other dioceses as well as other tribal entities, etc., in passing this resolution with this sort of language.
Okay, yeah, the first paragraph was great where it says and or similar.
Yeah.
Just look at the later paragraph. Thank you.
Welcome. So let's see here, and we are now, so this next canon resolution, as it says, this is just replacing Diocesan Council with Standing Committee. It's what we were already talking about when it comes to the Constitution. Um, 2024.6 is just standing committee and lay deputies. And it again removes lay members of the diocesan council. So this is just another one of those clerical things. 2024.5.
And Monica had a question about 2024.5.
Yes.
So Monica, can you ask your question, please?
Yeah, so there was a sentence about nominating and electing a treasurer and members of the standing committee. It's on page 20 of the hard copy. And the previous sentence said that you would elect a secretary at every convention. Does that mean that we don't elect a treasurer at every convention?
The treasurer term is 3 years.
Okay.
So we don't elect a treasurer at every convention.
Okay. Got it. Thanks for the clarification.
Okay.
.7 is, so this one looks a little bit more complicated, but what it basically is doing is merging what were the responsibilities of the Diocesan Council and the Standing Committee to just be on the Standing Committee. So it's 2 clergy members and 2 lay members of standing committee when it used to be one from both the standing committee and one from diocesan council. Resolution 2024.8, amend Canon 1, Section 4B. As you note, this one is marked with content. So this is actually a content change to how we go about forming a diocesan convention, and specifically how lay delegates are chosen to that convention. So as it reads here, elected delegates, we're removing wardens from automatic participation in diocesan convention. Wardens are still more than free to sign up to run to be delegates to diocesan convention. They are just simply not automatically members of the convention. And then everything, then a number of delegates is based upon attendance. So delegate for an average Sunday attendance of 1 to 49 is 2 delegates, 3 delegates for 50 to 99, 4 delegates Sunday attendance of 100 to 199, and 5 delegates for churches with an average Sunday attendance of over 200. A congregation may elect as many alternates as it wishes, not exceeding the total number of its elected lay delegates. Erica, my presumption is that you would like to speak to this resolution as is a content resolution.
Yes, thank you, Ben. It's a pleasure to be with all of you tonight. The Constitutions and Canons Committee spent significant time on this resolution with a couple of these with a couple of desires in mind as we thought about this. One of the main considerations was about keeping the size of convention to a size that's both able to fit into some of our churches that are a little bit larger to keep costs down for the overall diocese, but also with room to grow at those locations as well. Currently, there's struggles with including visitors to convention and others in our business time, and so that's become difficult. But the larger part of this is due to the high expense of convention that the old days of our 2-day in-person at a hotel space or whatnot nowadays costs upwards of $100,000 at these kinds of locations. And now, as many of you know, we're only doing that model once every 3 years or so, but reducing the size of the overall convention, which is also in line with many other dioceses, their practices, that it doesn't demand the warden's attendance, but the elected delegates only, could really bring us into a place where we're saving upwards of $75,000 per time that we're doing these larger gatherings. So we're really hopeful that this can be something that's good for the parishes. And as Ben mentioned, that if wardens love going to convention, they can absolutely run to be a delegate, but it's not mandatory for them anymore. And then also going alongside that is this change from how we all, many of us probably all realize how difficult it is to really track the membership or congregants of our congregations, but we're all tracking our ASA, we're tracking our average Sunday attendance and writing it in our books. And so to do the math in a simpler format, it just wants to hopefully make life easier for everyone. We don't vote on these resolutions in this meeting. We'll do it at convention. So this is just preparation for that. I can't see others right now because I think Ben and I are pinned, but are there questions or conversation about this topic? Okay.
Erica, I think Tim Highland has a question for you.
Tim,
It's on
can
the
you use
next
the
one, it
raise
looks
hand
like.
feature so you pop up for us?
Yeah.
I popped it up.
Ah,
I was not.
okay. Now I hear you talking. So what's your question, sir?
Well, my question is more philosophical. So am I understanding it correctly that basically for financial reasons, we're limiting the number of lay participants in convention?
It is to benefit the financial bottom line, yes, of both the diocese and parishes.
Well, the parishes can make up their own mind on how many delegates they decide to send, no matter how many were elected. So you're mandating a lower number. So isn't that simply cutting part of the lay participation?
I guess you could choose to look at it that way.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was sort of understanding. Thank you.
Sure.
Holly, I see your text.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm clearly in the dark. Holly Herring from St. Anthony on the Desert Episcopal Church. I did have a follow-up question to that, because that's how I was reading that, is that there'll be less lay participation and voices at convention. Is there any proposal to decrease the number of clergy voices at convention?
There is not. I will say the clergy, we went through the canons for clergy participation. Our clergy participation canons are actually already pretty stringent. You have to be, in addition to the obvious of you have to be clergy and you have to be canonically resident in the diocese and actually resident in the diocese, which is different from some dioceses. You also have to be active per the rector of a congregation where you are serving. So we don't really have a way of diminishing clergy voices. I will say, in addition to the reasons that Erica raised, I have heard from a number of rectors and vicars that they have difficulty getting the sufficient number of representatives to go to convention. So there is another reason for that there.
Thanks. James?
I just wanted to comment that you can request a vote by orders on almost anything before convention. So if lay people felt like clergy suddenly had undue influence, they could just request a vote by orders. And also the numbers being proposed are more typical with what other dioceses do, including dioceses much bigger than ours. You know, we're a big state with numerically a lot of small congregations, yet we've had this bonus size number of delegates from each congregation. So I don't see any big difference in different dioceses in how delegate selection creates different outcomes or silences anybody's voice. It does make it possible to do the meeting in a simpler way, as the committee describes.
Thanks. Anyone else? Comments, questions? That's what this time is for, is to be able to have some of these conversations. So thanks, Kate, in the chat. And then
I have a question.
Churches have a hard time getting delegates because of the cost. Sometimes I would guess and a more central location might be less expensive. That's very possible, Kelly. Thank you. Gail, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it doesn't disturb me as a new lay person, 3 years Episcopalian, seeing the way that you want to distribute the laity, you know, based on the delegates, based on the parishes. It's not like any parish isn't going to have representation. Everybody will have lay people there to represent and to take the voice back. And conventions are wonderful networking places and places for people to visit and all of that. But we have lots of opportunities, from what I can tell as a newbie in this diocese, and lay people's voices are heard, unlike many, many Christian organizations. So I appreciate the need to kind of funnel it down, but I don't feel it counts us out. That's all.
Appreciate that, Gail. Thank you. Churches have more money and are more able to pay more retired clergy.
I see Michael Ajami's question, and if we have fewer lay if we have a smaller convention, we can fit more visitors. So anyone can come to convention who wants to come to convention as a non-voting visitor. And right now, the visitors for this convention are going to be in the parish hall because there's no room for them in the church. So,
Jacqueline and then Sarah.
So I just had a question about like if we could get any government funding because if we're kind of running low on cash or having to like build a really strict budget and having to like move around where we are based on money, then why couldn't we get like some sort of government funding each year?
Minds that are greater than mine might need to respond to that.
So I think we have a pretty tight budget, and that the budget presentation was on Thursday, but it should be in your packet and you can review that and we'll discuss it at convention. In terms of government funding, governments rarely give monies to churches. So we don't really have an option for that. You know, they're always happy to seek grants. So if you are a budding grant writer and want to kind of like research some of those things, we'd be happy to spend some time talking to you.
Sarah.
I'm just wondering if we know what the new ratio of lay people to clergy will now look like, if we have any kind of ideas, being a math person.
Off the top of my head, there is still a much larger majority of lay people to clergy. Even if every single lay person with this new number came with the current number of like ASAs and everything, it would still far outweigh the clergy voices. Not outweigh, that sounds wrong, but I mean the number is much larger for the number is much larger of lay than it is of clergy.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions on this resolution or ready to move ahead? All right, Ben.
Yes. So the next resolution is directly tied to this one, and it is basically changing our reporting pre-convention so that Serena has the appropriate numbers and names. And so basically, if we no longer having wardens come to diocesan convention, then we need to not monitor wardens. So it's more of the same, but basically following the consequences of and updating the canons as we move along. Amend section 1, canon 1, section 5. So the elections may be voice, electronic, or paper ballot. Elects dispensed with by unanimous consent. Elections of candidates for office shall be by ballot. No vote can be cast by proxy in the convention. So this is basically just allowing us to be able to use modern technology as we go about doing our voting.
We have a question from Michael Smithson. Your hand is raised.
Thank you. So I'm just looking at this one, and for the first sentence, it's explicit that elections may be made by voice, electronic, or paper ballot, but candidates for office is then just by ballot, and that's not explicitly voice, electronic, or paper ballot. Does that then default to a paper ballot, or are we just interpreting that second edition to be the same as the first edition?
So this is one where the counsel we got was that we actually didn't need to change it at all in order to use electronic ballot, but we wanted to make it more explicit that electronic ballots were permitted. So I think by ballot means electronic or paper ballot.
Okay.
It does not, but we raise hands only for things that are that are not elections of offices.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, resolution 2024.10, amend canon section 2, section 2, content. The bishop may appoint one or more archdeacons, period. And it basically gets rid of any other specific expectations canonically. The bishop is, of course, free to place whatever expectations they desire upon the archdeacon. 2024.12, remove canon 4, section 5. This is basically the appointment of the business manager, and that we will be no longer having a business manager allowed to have one by canons. Erica, our bishop, do you wish to speak to the reason behind this move?
I'll leave it to Bishop.
Okay, I admit I was answering a question in the chat and wasn't paying attention. So, Ben, are we on?
The business manager, and that we will
Right.
no longer have a canon saying that we
Yeah,
can appoint a
that
business
was,
manager.
so when we looked around the room and we asked around, we discovered that no one knew what this canon meant, or if anyone had ever served as a business manager. So it seemed like it was something that was not necessary.
And the bishop can staff her office as she sees fit.
Yeah.
Is what
So.
falls into the category for me.
2024.13, amend canon 5, section 4. And so this is the content comes, any congregation that fails to pay its diocesan mission share for 6 months within a 12-month period may be required by the bishop to meet with a committee appointed by the bishop with approval of the standing committee. Members of congregations that are 6 months or more behind in paying their mission share shall not be eligible for election to diocesan office. And this basically gives a little bit more leeway to the bishop and the standing committee when processing and dealing with parishes, missions that are behind in mission share. Erica or the bishop wish to speak to this?
I certainly can. I think it probably goes basically to what you were saying, Ben, that that there's just a little more room for the standing committee and the bishop to work with congregations that are in this situation. But at 6 months or more without mission share, there needs to be a limit essentially on how whether they're running for office in the diocese. So I don't think if there's questions, say the word. Robin.
Back up. I think excuse me, I'm sorry, Erica, can someone put it back up again? I was trying to I thought I saw something and it may have just been my eyes. I thought I saw a reference to diocesan council.
Yes. Yeah, it was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that should be to standing committee, is that correct?
Correct. That's one of the edits that are being prepared.
Okay, so we have this, well, I guess what I'm understanding then is we have the context, or I guess the any and versus content. So we're doing the canon twice. I'm just trying to, we're doing once to change everything from diocesan council to standing committee, and then the second time for the content.
Yes, correct. That is correct.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure if my eyes were.
No, good eyes. You're not the only one.
Thanks.
Any other questions about this one? Please use the raise hand feature. Michael.
So thank you. I understand the rationale behind limiting involvement from parishes or missions that are behind, and the need to kind of take that seriously. I am just wondering if there is any concern about depriving the diocese, the greater church, of gifts and talents and skills of members who might be able to serve the greater church, because their parish or their mission congregation is not in a good financial situation.
Well, part of, I think, what would be, what is part of this is wanting to help those congregations get caught up so that there's motivation to get caught up too, but a sense of like, let's all work together toward those things being more possible. That's my take anyway. Bishop, would you add anything?
Yeah, I think we have a couple congregations that are in this situation. Like, so if we were having this thing today, there would be, I don't know, a handful. There's not many. Getting 6 months behind in mission share is a lot. So if you're 6 months behind, something is going on, and we're probably going to be working with you. But I do think that there's something to be said for if you want to have a leadership position in the diocese, your congregation should be an active participant in the diocese, and that including financially. And so, this is, you all in the convention will decide. Some people have chimed in, how it is in other dioceses, and how quickly you can lose entirely your lay representation or your clergy voice and vote over things like this. I think the Diocese of Arizona is really generous in not having this canon, though it did previously before I got here, apparently, because there was a residual memory of it that we then had to go scurrying through the canons and discovered was not there anymore. So this would be a restoration of something that used to be there. But y'all get to decide, and the parliamentary procedure means that people can offer amendments if they feel so moved from the floor of convention.
Other comments? Yeah, Debbie, it's a good point. If not paying mission share could be a hint that there's deeper issues. Absolutely. We want to. Okay, let's continue.
The next resolution looks at the structure of the nominating committee of the diocese. Yes, I am on the right one. And basically it goes from 3 members of the clergy and 3 lay persons, to which shall consist of at least 3 members of the diocese, including at least 1 lay person and 1 clergy member, to be appointed by the bishop not fewer than 90 days prior to the date of each annual convention. Eric or a bishop would like to speak to this.
I believe this is just an effort to acknowledge that volunteerism can be challenging to staff, and so
yeah, this is setting us up with a more achievable goal for the size of a nominating committee.
2024.15, amend Canon 6, Section 2 language. And this is one of those many places where what we're doing is changing it from chairman to chair, which is obviously important for a variety of reasons. 2024.16, amend Canon 7, Section 1 is another content reality. So the resolutions committee, which shall consist of at least 3 members of the diocese, including at least 1 lay person and 1 clergy member in good standing, basically replicating what we have just talked about in regard to the nominating committee.
Same reasoning applies.
24.17, Canon 7, Section 2. And if we go down, we'll just see that this is another chairman to chair. This is one of the reasons why we have things in the omnibus thing above. 2024.18, report following General Convention. and basically updating the process so that the General Convention deputation shall produce a unified written report and make a presentation to the diocese following the General Convention. And so this is different from the former process, is that if you were seated as a deputy to General Convention, then you yourself wrote a report, and now it's a unified report from our entire deputation.
We think it is more likely you will read one report than 10 reports.
2024.19, amend Canon 15, Section 4. And this is to the nature of vestries. So vestry members may serve 2 consecutive terms of 3 years, but are not eligible for re-election until after the expiration of 1 year from the date of the termination of the prior 3-year term, would be the update there.
And that puts us in line with most of your bylaws.
Uh, 2024.20, the annual parish meeting shall be held during the months of January, February, or in the month of December, immediately preceding the month of January in which the meeting would otherwise be held. And this basically is allowing congregations a greater amount of time in which to plan their annual meeting.
Hopefully that's helpful.
Dot 21 is member of, so instead of committeemen, they, and then his or her to they, and chairman to chair. It is more of the basic language. Thanks.
James?
I have a point of clarity question. The May language about allowing 2 consecutive 3-year vestry terms would suggest to me that a congregation is still free in its bylaws to rule out 2 consecutive 3-year terms. Is that
Yes,
the committee's
that is true.
understanding?
That is my understanding. But right now, the diocesan canons, which should supersede parish bylaws, most of the parish bylaws say you can serve 2 consecutive terms, and our canons say you can't. And we think the parish bylaws are right.
Okay.
Michael.
Thanks, folks. So just a point of order kind of question. And that is, being a newbie to this whole thing, do most parishes stick to the calendar year as their fiscal, or do we have parishes that are on like the semester or something like that?
Parishes are January 1st to December 31st.
Pretty much always.
Always, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
On to 22.
22, the recommendation of the Finance Committee and any other diocesan body that has worked with the congregation and all other evidence that may be then presented in thereafter the bishop shall. So basically it expands who is at the hearing when there is this petition happening.
A petition to move from parish status to mission status.
Yes.
Specifically.
Okay. 2024.23 is a very basic change from an and to an and. 2024.24 is more of our moving towards gender inclusive language. Amend Canon 26, Section 1, 2024.25, basically adds this, with the permission of the Standing Committee, the Diocese of Arizona may share intake officers, disciplinary board, and other participants in the Title IV process with one or more dioceses. So this allows the conversation to happen. Erica or the bishop, would you like to speak to this?
think the explanation is pretty clear that there are so many dioceses now have sharing Title IV agreements with neighboring dioceses, and I want us to have the capacity to do that here.
Erin, you have a question?
Yes. There's a grammatical error in one of the changes that you wanted to make. And I think it's we've gone through them so fast that I didn't get my hand up fast enough because it took me a while to find the button. I'm an old lady. It's hard for me to find things. And so I think we're missing a comma. Does anybody care?
Possibly. I mean, what comma?
So I need you to put it back up, Serena, please.
That's actually our lovely Laurel running
actually.
tech.
Laurel.
I'm the chatter and
Okay,
the hand
I love that.
raiser.
I think it was in 21. I'm scrolling as if I have some commit. Okay.
Was it a long one, Erin?
Yeah, it was a long sentence and we added something into it and we missed a comma. And
okay, 2024.19, Canon 15, Section 4. Is it this one? Vestry members?
No. Keep going. I'm sorry. Do you know what? I'm going to put it in the chat.
Great. Love that.
That way we can keep going.
Or you can send Laurel or I an email.
Even better. Thanks, Serena.
And were there questions about 25? All right, then 26.
And 26 is just simply another updating chairman to chair.
Okay. Any other questions?
Huge thanks to Canon Erica, President of Standing Committee, and to Ben Guerin, Chair of Resolutions. For this year, the resolutions got fun and long, and thank you both for your involvement. Any other questions about any resolutions? Okay. I realized that we did, someone pointed out to me, and by I realized meaning that somebody said, hey, what about this? Jan Feltz, are you still here? Because you are the nominee for Secretary of Convention. And
I'm
you
here.
are, so I suspect running unopposed because we've never yet had more than one person fight for being Secretary of Convention. But would you like to share your vision for this role with the diocese?
Sure. I am running for re-election. As someone pointed out a little bit earlier, this office is elected every year. And so over the years that I have been involved with parish work, it seems that my gifts lie in the organizational and administrative area. And so I'd like to do it again.
Thank you. All right. Thank you to everyone who has been nominated or expects to be nominated. I wrote down all of your names. Thank you to everyone who asked questions about the resolution for greater clarity and for better understanding. Remember that if you are intending to offer amendments to resolutions, you will need to follow the rules of order that are available on the website. And where those rules of order are incomplete, Robert's rules of order. But you know, we are prepared for every eventuality of these resolutions. And thanks to Serena and to Laurel for their good work of being the tech team tonight. Thanks to Mike for his work as chair of nominations, Ben for resolutions, and everyone have a blessed and wonderful night. And I'm going to send you out into it with my blessing. So may the God who loves you bless you tonight and every night. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.